Good afternoon, everybody. Kristian Nyland here, Sober Identity Podcast. It's another Friday. It's a glorious day. I'm looking out my front window here, and it's just, there's not a cloud in the sky. And I'm so excited to get out there here later today. But I've got a new guest here. His name is Bo Taylor. And the coolest story for Bo and I, this is the first time we're actually chatting face to face. It's still via technology, but we've just been sending DMs and being part of the sober community there on Instagram. But I reached out to Bo and said, hey, man, let's do a podcast together. What do you think? So here we are. And so cool to connect with you, Bo, and welcome to the show. I want to talk about how awesome your username is, because being a kid that was born in the early 80s, lived through the 90s, like as you can see behind me, like I'm such a sports nut and obviously appreciate so many different athletes. But Bo Jackson is obviously on my list, and I loved him as an athlete and everything else. But tell us about the origin of your username, because it's great.
Yeah, so, during his heyday when he was at Auburn and then of course, right as he got into baseball and football, Nike picked him up and their big ad campaign was Bo knows this, Bo knows that. And at the time I happened to be a three-sport athlete in high school, not quite as good as Bo Jackson, but I held my own. So the name just kind of stuck. I got it on my license plate. It was I've been in the fitness industry for years, so Bo Knows Fitness has been a thing of mine for a long time. And so when I kind of got talked into or had thought about doing this whole Instagram thing and reviewing the beers and whatnot, it just was kind of a natural thing. And then also kind of a play on, I really don't know that much about anything. So, it was kind of an appropriate name to go with.
I love it so much. When I saw your profile, I'm like, this guy's got it going on. Like, I so understood the play on that, and I just love. I'm such a Nike guy from second grade on, and just that level of advertisement. I mean, that was pure gold what Nike did with
Absolutely.
Bo, and Bo just being such an incredible athlete. I remember watching. I'm sure you probably paid attention to the 30 for 30 series, and if you watch that documentary on Bo, man, I mean, he was such a one of a kind athlete for the way that his
Yeah.
body was built and the stories that were told there. I mean, it just gave me goosebumps watching that show. So cool that
Absolutely.
you've tied that in.
Yeah.
But give the listeners a glimpse into who Bo Taylor is. I want to hear about the guy that was into drinking. The former Bo.
Yeah.
Let's hear about that guy, because I want to paint that picture for the listeners to kind of see your progression and what brought you here.
Yeah, I think, it really started, I guess the heavy drinking started like for a lot of us in college. I was just your typical, I was a swimmer in college, so I didn't drink a ton, but when I did drink, it was always just like my personality. It was always kind of all or nothing. I either didn't drink or it was blackout, drunk. And unfortunately in college, that's sort of normal. Like for somebody to pass out or not remember what they did the night before was, that was a good time. So, that was, off and on throughout college. And then after college is probably when the real, like, kind of, not that it wasn't serious before, but I didn't have the limitations of school and, I was an adult and could kind of do my own thing. So that's when it really, like, you know, got pretty serious. And, I was never the type of person who drank alone. Now, I might go in a bar where there's, it's first thing as soon as the doors open and the only person is there is the bartender. But to me, that wasn't drinking alone. There was somebody there, and I enjoyed the bar atmosphere. I still do. It's just a neat thing for me. Obviously, I don't drink alcohol anymore. So yeah, I think that's where it really started was in college. Of course, there were times in, maybe early teenage years where I tried it, but nothing ever truly developed from that. But yeah, certainly the college days is when it probably really got to a serious career. I always like to, people ask me kind of what my story is, and I say, well, went pro early and retired.
I've been using that same line. I love
Yeah,
that you use that. I say the same thing. I
yeah.
retired from my professional drinking career.
But yeah, and then I lived in Virginia for a long time or grew up there and then moved. to South Carolina, and I, like a lot of people, and you learn through different classes and stuff that I've taken that, moving from one place to the next isn't going to solve your problem. I just took those problems with me. I thought, oh, it'll be a fresh start. I don't think I was really thinking about quitting drinking, but I just thought, well, this will just be a new start. And it just, of course, all started back up again. So, went through relationships where, alcohol was an issue, and of course had all kinds of other issues that I won't get into too much. But I always say I've hit plenty of rock bottoms that most people would have woken up and been like, "Hey, maybe this is something I should quit." Um, and up until almost 8 years ago, I just couldn't figure it out. And finally, my last issue was basically I got to a point where my significant other at the time said, "You either quit or we're done." The good and the bad of that is I did it at the time for her, and I should have been doing it for me. But in hindsight, it was the catalyst that got me to the point that where I realized I needed to do it for myself. So I'm thankful for her for that. But yeah, I think, and that I think it really comes down to, and we hear this all the time, that it has to be a decision for yourself. Nobody can do it for you. It's just one of those things that until you make the decision, somebody can tell you you need to quit, but
Yeah, no, you're dead on. I mean, it is the toughest decision to make, and I find it interesting that you mentioned all these other rock bottom moments, but those didn't do it for you. It was another human being telling you, "Hey, I draw the boundary right here. You either
right,
make this decision or I'm gone." How did
right.
that make you actually feel when your significant other told you that statement? How did that feel for you in that moment?
I mean, sadly, I was probably more concerned about the relationship than thinking about drinking as the problem. I was just more concerned that, hey, I don't want this relationship to end. I don't want to be out on my butt, you know, trying to figure out life again, alone. And I think, it didn't take terribly long after that for me to kind of snap into it and say, okay, I've got to do this for myself. This isn't, uh, she may or may not be around forever. So yeah, it was obviously a tough rock bottom. Like I said, had been through some before, and for one reason or another, just couldn't get it through my head that, and part of that's if you that's part of the addiction, or if that's part of the problem, obviously that you can't get away from it. So,
Yeah, yeah, for sure. And I think having that human element to it was probably huge for you. So to walk us through, you get this ultimatum. You're like, okay, I don't want this relationship to go south. I really want to keep this going. Not still somewhat in denial that alcohol truly is an issue for you. Like how did that transition happen for you? Was that just a mental shift of now you stopped drinking to where it started to come up in your brain of like, oh, I'm realizing how often I want to go to the bar. I want to reach
right.
for a drink. Like, walk us through that.
Yeah, I think, I can't remember where I heard the phrase, or that basically a lot of people with addictions or that have problems like this, they're just trying to fill a hole. So I think luckily for me, because fitness has been such a big part of my life, I was able to take that and use that to, again, my personality is that all or nothing personality. So I think a lot of the doing that, I was like, okay, I'm taking out alcohol, I'm putting in something else. So, of course, I got in great shape, and and I have other interests, and those things kind of fell into place too, to where I started utilizing a lot of those. Unfortunately, a lot of times people they use food, or they use something else, and they'll use that as the excuse for why they're doing something else, or why they're spending so much money on all these things. Well, I'm not drinking. Well, that's kind of good. So, and I can't say that I haven't been, victim of that a little bit over time as well. But yeah, I think it's just like with anything, finding those healthy alternatives that aren't dangerous, that don't hurt others. So that was the big thing to me, was just a transition of finding something else to fill that time and fill that void.
Yeah, sure. So you're filling your time with fitness, and I want to ask you all about that stuff because I know you're deep into that still. What else were you filling your time with? So I love the fitness side too. I'm all about that. That has been a saving grace for me. I grew up as an athlete as well. I love athletics. I always enjoyed being at the top of my game, and I just like the challenge. And it's another addiction, if you will, but a very, very
Right.
healthy one. I mean,
Right.
I love that piece. And that's something that if you are very addictive and you're an all in type of person, like you just
Right.
described, then I'm with you. I go when I set a goal or I'm doing something, and drinking was this massive competition for me as well. Like I actually really enjoyed that piece. And I've realized now that I'm sober that I did actually treat it as a competition with my peers. Like I
Oh
will
yeah.
outdrink you. Like you're
Yeah.
sitting here sleeping, like let's get up, let's start drinking again, let's get to the bar. And I'm just pushing myself in the worst possible way. So
Right.
I love the fitness side, but putting that aside, what else were you doing to get you over the hump of drinking?
Well, I think too, I had at that time, I had actually had just started a new job and a day job in a completely different industry. So that became a big focus that I was like, okay, can't lose the significant other, can't lose my job, can't, all these things that could destroy my life, or at least, at least set me back away. So that was a big part of it. I think kind of in conjunction with doing fitness, um, more people were a lot more apt to approach me about, I do occasional coaching on the side, whether it be, nutrition or putting together programs or anything like that. So I don't know how much being a sober person or a not drinking person kind of adds that. And I feel like it has helped some, because I feel like there are a lot of people that are either on the fence, maybe they have a problem, maybe they don't have a problem, maybe they're just drinking a little too much, and that's what's hindering them from getting from point A to point B with their fitness goals and nutrition goals. So I think a lot of times, I'm the one person they can't say, well, you don't understand. I've been overweight. You know, I am an alcoholic. I've been an alcoholic, so to speak. So you can't throw those things at me and tell me that I don't get it. So I think that's been my good thing with my fitness stuff, is that I've been an athlete. I've been on both sides of the coin. I've been an athlete. I've been overweight. I am stone cold sober. I've been on the other side of that as well. So just a lot of other, different facets that I can kind of shoot from.
Yeah, I think that's really neat that you can use that experience to what you're doing now and go into that a little bit on the fitness side of things because I've obviously follow your other page when it comes to the fitness side. I'm curious where you're at with that. I know you've been an athlete, fitness has been a big part of your routine. Where are you and what are you doing with that right now?
Yeah, right now, I mean, I'm still coaching people from time to time. I don't really promote or advertise. A lot of family and friends, those sorts of things. People that, friends of friends, or whatever. My own personal fitness, I really I'm big on Orange Theory Fitness. It's like kind of a boutique type fitness deal.
Yeah, yeah, I love that.
I've really enjoyed that. And occasionally just doing my own thing. I've done the bodybuilding stuff years ago, and as much as I love watching some of those folks, it's a lot. It's it's mental, probably more mental than anything. I mean, of course, it's a lot of hard work, and the nutrition is pretty rigorous, but the mental side is really tough. And for me, and with everything that I have going on, it's just, I don't think my life is ready for that right now.
Makes sense to me. Yeah, it's definitely a solid commitment. So the people that you're coaching, have you included, do they know that you're sober? Do they talk about their alcohol intake? Because this is something that totally crippled so much progress for me. I would always get to a very high level of fitness, whether it be a streak of a month or even a couple weeks. I'd be feeling great. And then I'd totally sabotage and drop a bomb on the whole thing. I'd binge drink from Thursday to Sunday and try to fight that cycle. I mean, I looked at pictures of myself and I posted them on my page of just, I thought I was physically fit and trim, but my body looked wrecked because my cycle was I would go and I would basically just work out to kill off all the calories that I was
Right.
consuming, right? And I'd pick
Yeah.
like I'd drink the seltzers like White Claws and whatnot just to keep my sugar levels down. I mean,
Right.
it's so screwed up, Bo. You know what I'm saying? But this is
Oh,
what
yeah.
my mind was doing. I'm like, I'm definitely not giving up drinking. I'm going to conquer it by going and running as hungover as possible, sitting in a sauna so I could sweat all this stuff out so that I'd feel good enough to go take an actual nap because when you're that hungover, you can't even nap, you can't sleep.
Oh, yeah.
Anyways, so it's a total mess. I'm just curious if you've been able to even convert some of your clients of like, hey, let me tell you, the number one game changer here for your fitness. Are you a
Yeah.
drinker? And they say yes, and you go, cut that out because it's
Yeah.
going to save you. Anyways,
Oh, yeah. It's funny. I think that's, again, like I was talking about, that's where I kind of have the upper hand, I guess, is because there's no words that they can say to me to justify whatever that behavior is. So, especially when it comes to drinking, and most, I would say most of my clients that I've had in the past are pretty honest and straightforward, and they'll say, "Hey, I was doing really well, but I had a couple of glasses of wine. I was out with friends, or whatever the case may be." And they know, it just like any of us, we all know it. We have the tools. It's just a matter of the the doing it. So I think that's a big part of it, and just the sheer willpower to tell your friends no, or to tell your family no, or just don't go out, or whatever the case may be. So yeah, I try to give people the different tools. I feel like it's more so with women than men, and not to be in a sexist way, but feel like a lot of women, a lot of it is just having a drink in a pretty glass. Like, it doesn't even have to be alcohol. Like, nobody has to know what's in the glass. And even with guys, like, you can kind of play that game too, and have a mug or a glass that everybody's drinking out of a Yeti or an iron flask, or one of these steel things that you can't see through anyway. And nobody cares. And I think that's the biggest thing that I've noticed is probably 9 times out of 10, nobody cares what's in your cup. So why bother? When it comes to a point that your goals are more important, you'll find ways. You either make it a priority or an excuse. And I think that's the big thing. Um, but yeah, like I said, I think a lot of times, probably more so than I realize, most people just don't care. And to me, to be honest, if you're around a bunch of people that do care if you're drinking or not, they may not be the people you need to be around.
100%. That is huge. I think that's going to be the key of understanding you don't need to worry about what other people think. I And that terrified me because my
Yeah,
identity was all wrapped up in alcohol, being the fun guy,
100%.
being the brewery guy, the beer guy. I mean, I had a friend of mine think that I named my youngest daughter after the beer. Her name is Stella, and he's laughing. He thought it was funny. He goes, "Oh, I thought you totally named her after the beer Stella," and it hit me of like that is so embarrassing. The fact that
Right.
my friend legit thinks that I named my child after a beer.
Right.
Hello, like you need to start looking at your life.
Yeah.
Crazy, crazy stuff, but I totally agree with a lot of the things that you said there. But I want to bring up the goal setting because for me, and this is going to tie into my question for you, which is how long so you set this goal of becoming sober. Did you accomplish that the first try? Did you accomplish this goal the first go? Because I asked this because for me personally, this was a trial and error process for literally years, for I would say 4 solid years of going and trying it and going, yeah, I know I feel great and wonderful, but I don't know if I can enjoy my life without drinking. So I want to ask you that question in regards to the goal piece.
So it's funny. To be completely honest, with a few exceptions, I've never really been a goal person. So the very first time I quit drinking was back in 2008, I believe. And it was truly after a what I would call most people would call probably a crazy night. I called it, it was a typical night out. I woke up the next morning and just said, I don't want to feel like this anymore, and just quit cold turkey. So that lasted for about almost 4 years, and got asked out by a friend. They were like, hey, just come out, whatever. Didn't even think about drinking. Got there and they just kept, hey, just have one. It's no big deal. I had a couple beers. We parted ways and I drove straight to the next bar by myself and just let it loose. Now, unfortunately, see, so that would have been 2011 or so. I didn't quit until 2017. So I went, a solid 7 years of pretty hardcore drinking. Um, I know that there were plenty of times I'd get on the internet and be like, "Hey, do I have a drinking problem?" and take the quizzes, and of course they were like, "Hell yeah, you have a problem." That's not me, and I'd keep going. And I know I went through bouts where I did stop. Like I did a bodybuilding show in 2007, 2008, around that time, and then another one in 2009. And for that, I would stop. But it wasn't a conscious thing of I have a problem and I'm stopping. It was just, I know I need to do this, just that singular focus of what I was doing. And then, of course, as soon as it was over, I wouldn't say I would jump right back into it, but I would slowly get my feet back in the water. And then, of course, once the water was fine, I was back into it. So yeah, honestly, I don't know that I ever. And then when I stopped this last time, again, I think it was more of the catalyst of the significant other of like, you got to do this. Like there is no, it's either this or you're out. So the goal was set for me, so to speak. So, and then like I said, once I kind of realized, hey, I've got to do this for myself and not for anybody else, then again, like I've always said, that the one day at a time thing is for real. Some days you don't think about it, other days you think about it more than you probably should. But I think that's the big thing: is get through one day, just one more day, just one more day, and that's probably been one of my bigger mantras of any of it.
Mm-hmm. It's such a great approach to this, is just going, yeah, this seems like a massive task for me to do. But if you just focus on it each situation, each day, each moment at a time, that's what I also found. Same thing. It was like, can I conquer today? Can I conquer this conversation with someone who's pushing me? And I fell in the same trap you described, with having buddies go, how long are you going to do this for? Like, is this just for health reasons? Like they didn't want to accept the fact that I was legitimately considering never drinking again. That's how much of this weighed on me. And to not have that self confidence in myself. And I don't know if this was also for you when it comes to insecurity on this decision, but that was a big, big hang up for me. I couldn't fathom trying to handle those not confrontational but kind of moments where people are pushing you on your decision, and me not being able to go, I'm not drinking. I'm not going to say it again. Right. And then everyone's like, oh, you're such a loser. You're no fun. And then you're like, Jesus, I can't even have a good time. All I'm trying to say is I don't want to drink. Then I've had those moments too. And
Yeah.
it's tough. I mean, it's really tough. And so I'm right there with you. I had so many scenarios like that where I went and I would stop and then I'd go again and stop and go. And you better believe if I'd stopped for a little bit and I started to go again, 2, 3 days, I am back into the vicious, really um, dangerous type of drinking where I was like,
Oh
I
yeah.
didn't care if it was 9 a.m. I didn't care if I had to drive. I didn't care. I just didn't care. It was like I got to a point where I just didn't even care anymore. And that's where, for someone listening, like, you got two guys here that we've gone through the cycles and we've done the different things and we've set certain goals. Like you're like, yeah, I'm going to start bodybuilding. I'm going to stop drinking. I did the same thing. I had a really big job interview coming up and I'm like, I got to be sharp for that. Yet we don't listen to our gut while we're Googling, do I have a problem? We
Oh
don't
yeah.
want to listen to that goal. That goal is irrelevant because
Right.
it's so scary. And so did fear play a big factor into this for you?
I'm sure it did. Like I said, I don't know that I guess I never thought about like, can I do it? Like, I guess I never thought about like, could I relapse? I think the biggest reason that for my relapse the last time was there wasn't that hard decision. It was just kind of like, I need to quit. I don't want to feel like this anymore. It wasn't a catastrophic life event. I'm like, hey, this has got to stop. So I think that played a big part. To touch on something you were saying earlier, something that I've always thought about is when you're with your drinking buddies, you're never the person that has a problem. It's always like, because they're, especially when you're with that group, they're like, oh, you don't have a drinking problem. You don't drink any more than I do. And of course, in hindsight, I'm like, my God, you drink a lot. And I knew that I did too. And also too, like you really truly find out when you do quit drinking, especially when you drink a lot and you're around some of the same people a lot of the times, who the ones that are really friends. You find out like how many of those people would you go out and say, hey, do you want to go out and have lunch tomorrow? I can remember a friend telling me a story about that. Someone who she thought was a friend and said, hey, let's go have lunch tomorrow. And she looked at her like she had three heads. They were just drinking friends. It was nothing more than that. And there's so many people that I know that I'm still acquaintances with, I'm friends with on Facebook. That's exactly who they are. Is those were people that I knew I used to party with, and bartenders that I became quote unquote friends with that I've known for years, but they're not somebody I'd call and, hey, I need to change a flat tire or, something like that. So just kind of an interesting people thing.
Definitely. So for someone listening right now who is sitting there going like, "Oh, this sounds great. I'd love to quit drinking, but it's gonna completely destroy my social environment." What do you say to these people?
It is tough. I mean, I think you have to realize that you have to come up with a new normal. You have to develop healthier friendships. They always say, you are the person that hangs with your top five people. For me, for years and years, my top five people were hardcore drinkers, but also too, some of my closest friends, people that I grew up with, that I had plenty of good times with and drank with a lot. They've been some of the most accepting people with me not drinking. But I also know that they saw it, that they knew I had a problem, where they grew up, so to
Yeah,
speak.
exactly, exactly.
They grew out of the college days and had kids and got married, did all the things, and it became a less important thing in their life. Whereas for me, it was just my fun all the time, and I'm sure you know it. There's a West Wing episode where the guy talks about how could you not want a feeling in like this all the time, and that's the way I felt, and I just couldn't figure it out.
It's hard to step into that because your main focus is always alcohol. When
Right.
you're wired that way, like you and I
Yep.
have been for years, I only thought about that. I would just think, I can't wait to go have fun. And I would start to feel great. And then that would drive me to go want to feel even better, which is sitting out with my buddies at the bar or nice day outside. I wouldn't soak up
Right.
the nice day. It was like, oh, it's another great reason for me to go hang out for hours on end with my buddies and just
Yeah.
completely get totally bombed. And I think the key is to just see if you can have that mental shift of if you remove alcohol from the main attraction at all times, like it really opens up your world in amazing ways. And that's something that as you progress in sobriety, I personally notice I'm like, man, there's things that I find joy in that I never used to ever. Because I was just so in my head, it's chaos when you're a drinker. And I so like that it's so much more peaceful now. It's been total game changer. So I'm curious for you, how has how has sobriety truly affected you and your life up to this point?
I think there's just a lot more clarity. I think, kind of along the lines of what you were talking about, I just turned 52. I can't fathom, because I remember what hangovers were like, even though it was almost 8 years ago, it was not atypical to have a 3-day hangover. Of course, as we get older, the body has a tougher time metabolizing everything, and it's just a rougher experience. I have a tough time getting up out of bed now. I can't fathom what it would be like waking up with a hangover now. So there's a lot of gratitude and thankfulness for that. And I think that's the big thing is just the clarity, the clear head to be able to get through the things that, my mom recently passed away, been through a relationship change, those sorts of things. And I often thought that with either of my parents, I thought I would really go down this rabbit hole of either to start drinking again or worse. And I've never been probably more thankful that I didn't drink. And it was never even a thought, which kind of shocked me after some thought about it. So yeah, I think it's shockingly enough, I think, at least for me, it has really helped me handle life way better than I would have ever expected to, for sure.
And proud of you for staying strong. I know you've been going through some difficult times in your life, certainly the
Yeah.
passing of your mom. And I've been thinking about you, even though like I said, this is the first time we've discussed anything together, but
Yeah.
I feel like I know you just based
Yeah.
off of what you post, and we've had some interactions. But I
Yeah.
was thinking about that. I'm like, man, who can make it through this? And I knew you would. But I'm
Yeah.
like, that is such a test. I mean, how did that go for you? I mean, was there ever a moment when that happened for you that you're like, oh, that's it. I'm breaking this. I can't take this emotional anguish anymore. Talk us through that. If someone's going through something
Yeah.
really tough right now and they're like, God, I don't know how you wouldn't break.
Yeah, I mean, shockingly enough, like it really didn't cross my mind, and I think it was probably a few days after I kind of sat with my thoughts a little bit about it, and I was just like, I would just be so much worse off. Like, it was hard enough to be able to handle it with a clear head and all my faculties, and I was fortunate to have a close friend there that was able to help me get through some of the things I needed to get through. If I'd been drinking, it would have just been a show for sure. I'd probably still be sitting in the middle of that house trying to get through paperwork and figure things out, and I just would have been a mess, way more so than I was. So I think for somebody who's in the middle of it, I know it's tough, but just to know that to have that clarity, again, I keep using that word, but I think that was just the big thing for me was to be able to get through it without any kind of fog, without any kind of, not being sober. Like I said, I can't imagine how I would have acted being drunk, and no time, who knows what would have happened or transpired if, with any of that. So, and I think that, my mom was a big, proponent of me not drinking. I don't think she was more of a private person. So me coming out and talking about it all the time and telling stories and all that, I don't think she was terribly thrilled with. But I think as far as an end result, I know she enjoyed the fact that I think just, and again, for me too, I think there's that you do have a sense of relief. You have a sense of relief of, yeah, I'm not going to wake up with a hangover. I'm not going to get pulled over because I was doing something I shouldn't have been doing. I'm not going to get thrown out of a bar or arrested for, again, doing whatever just because I'm drunk. So feel like there's a lot of that pressure that's not on you, or that you don't feel like you have to wake up and go, well, okay, how did I get here? What happened last night? So I think I wake up just about every day thankful that, hey, I know where I'm at and how I got here. And if I can just find my keys, I'll be good.
Becomes a very basic way of living.
Yeah.
You mentioned clarity, and I love that you keep saying that word. It's so true. The clarity that you have to know that even though you had something like this happen in your life in that moment, you knew I am capable of this. And you walked yourself down the path, I'm sure, of, hey, if I go have a drink now, is it going to solve anything for me? The answer is
Oh, yeah.
always no. It's going to make
Yeah.
this even worse. In fact, it's going to delay the grieving process, which you need to have as a human being. And I know I've been going to therapy and everything else past couple years, and it's amazing to go back in time and go, wow, I definitely used alcohol to completely numb out what I needed to
Sure.
release. And now it comes ripping out of me in some of the sessions, but it's beautiful because it means I'm actually feeling it. when I
Right.
didn't give myself the opportunity to feel it in that moment. And that's what's
Right.
so cool about this. And so, yeah, this is such a massive shift for anybody who is sober, is the clarity and the peace. If you got to allow it to come in though. If you keep stressing over, oh, alcohol, alcohol, I can't drink anymore, my life is lame, stressing about that, yeah, you're never going to fall into that nice
Right.
peaceful place. And it takes work. It absolutely does. So, I was curious, is there any alcoholism throughout your family at all?
I mean, not that I'm aware of. I mean, I'm sure there were people that I guess you would consider heavy drinkers, but I don't. Not that. Well, I take that back. I had an uncle that was a very serious drinker, and he passed away at a relatively young age when I was young. Outside of that, not really. I mean, I think we had a few of your what you would consider your typical partier drinkers and that sort of thing, but I don't think anybody that had a serious problem that I'm aware of. Especially growing up as a kid, I don't know how much I picked up on who had a issue or not. And as I grew up and as a young adult, I didn't notice anybody that had any kind of serious issues.
That's good. That's good. Yeah, I definitely have it on both sides of my family. My mom grew up with an alcoholic mother, and it's so interesting looking back. I knew all this stuff, and yet in my brain, I was like, "No, that's not going to affect me. That's not going to affect
Right.
me." I totally just put it to the side, and then I started to tell myself, "Well, if I get to a point where, it's affecting my job," that was the measuring stick for me. And guess what, Bo? I started push the limits there. And then I was like, well, awesome. I can do this. I can do stuff hungover. And this is like, it just became again the competition piece for me of like trying to prove, it came back to me proving myself in some weird way because everyone values, a man who can drink. We
Yeah.
we glamorize the shit out of this stuff all the time. I've had it thrown in my face so many times by other men I've been around, and it just drove me nuts. And I'm like, well, okay, if this is where I can get a trophy, I'm doing it. Like, let me
Right.
show you what I can do. And I prided myself on that. And looking back, it was such wasted energy that
For
I could have
sure.
been using on so many different things.
Yeah.
So shifting gears, I want some of the listeners to kind of gain some different tools that they can put in their toolbox. I say this a lot because you need it, and I'm sure you've got a toolbox for yourself, and I do as well. I have various things that I can always go to if I'm feeling in a rut or anything like that. So, what would you recommend that are tools that you utilize to keep you on this path of an alcohol-free life?
Yeah, I think, of course, I really didn't expect to, but getting into the whole non-alcoholic beverage scene was a big thing for me. And I don't it was odd because I was actually kind of scared of it. I thought, well, if I'm going to try some of this and I'm just going to want the real thing. And I had, somebody gave me some for a birthday one year. They were like, "Hey, you've talked a little bit about this. Why don't you try it?" And I tried it and enjoyed it. So I don't know that that's a I don't even know if that's that might be a specialty tool in the toolbox. I don't know if that's one you need all the time. Kind of going back to what we said before about just simply having a healthy void filler. It could be fitness. It could be, taking a class. It could be some sort of hobby, whatever it is, just to fill that time because, anytime you have the idle mind and time to sit on your hands and twiddle your thumbs and then, of course, next thing you know, you've got a drink in your hand. So you're headed towards the bar. So I think that's the biggest thing for me was, it was easy for me because fitness was an easy go to. Finding just anything to fill your time, I think, is the biggest tool anybody can have. And I think the other thing is you touched on therapy. I wish I'd gotten into it a lot sooner than I did. I did for a little while years ago, and then have recently gotten back into it with everything going on. And it is something that I think is totally underrated. Like I think more people need to do that. Meditation has been another thing that I, again, kind of was kind of thought it was BS and it was just a lot of yogi type whatever. I've noticed that, and I usually only do it in maybe 5 or 10 minute spurts when it's not something that I'm dead set on doing, but I think that's a huge one. And then Journaling is another one that have gotten into, and a lot of the stuff I've gotten into recently, again with all the craziness. But all of it together has seemed to kind of it's kind of almost like supplements. If you do the hardcore nutrition and fitness, that's most of your hard work, and then those supplements kind of put you over the edge. And I feel like doing these little small things with meditation, journaling, therapy, and those sorts of things have really kind of helped me get over the hump a little bit.
All wonderful examples. I use every one of those
Yeah.
in my toolbox. I truly do. I have found therapy, and as a man, boy, there's plenty of men. You mention the word therapy or psychologist or anything like that,
Oh
and they're
yeah,
like, oh, hell no. I don't want any part of it. And I'll be honest with you, I was definitely hesitant when I started too. I felt that same just hesitation. I didn't want to do that because getting to know you and swallowing a lot of truth pills about yourself is miserable.
for
It totally
sure.
is. And the stuff that comes out and feeling how your body feels and, crying as a man. I mean,
Yeah.
I can count on one hand how many times I've seen my dad cry, and
Right.
I know a lot of people in my age group say the same thing, but I think you're seeing a really beautiful shift there. And we drink for a certain reason, right? We always use this as the reason for whatever, cover up something, numb something. So if you can start figuring this out, whether it be journaling is actually a wonderful technique, and jot down some prompts of why do I drink? And be real honest with yourself. Why am I
Yeah.
drinking? Why am I accepting hangovers all the time? Why is this the only thing that I do? Just come up with some really cool prompts. And even now, with the advent of AI, ChatGPT, and all these things, and I don't know if you're
Oh yeah,
using it, but I love it. And you can utilize this to really dive deep
for sure.
into you as an individual, and have a conversation with AI. You'll find magic inside of that. So I think bringing that up was awesome. And I wanted to also add in there finding a passion, right? Like, what is your number one passion these days? And answer that one. And then I want to remember to ask this too. What was your passion when you were a kid? Those are the
Yeah.
two.
I mean, I think, again, I go back to fitness and Orange Theory. That's, I really do enjoy that. Honestly, I've gotten really into a lot of, and it's a more sedentary activity, but a lot of the YouTube stuff, whether it be like a Mel Robbins or David Goggins or insert multitudes of motivational folks, self-improvement type stuff. So I do a lot of the Audible books because I'm not a reader. So any of that sort of stuff is really fills up a lot of time. Sadly enough, at 52 years old, I got my first Xbox.
Nice.
So I've been dabbling in seeing how bad I am at NCAA football.
Uh-huh.
But yeah, just like we were saying, just things to fill time. And as much as I joke about it, but then also too there's truth to it. At least I'm not drinking. So I think there is some good to that as well. So just not taking it too far and too extremes, just like with anything. So
Sure.
as far as passion as a kid, it would be back to sports. Like you couldn't find me not on a baseball field or soccer field or and so and of course as kids, we didn't come in until the street lights came on. So we were in somebody's backyard playing pickup football, basketball, baseball, soccer. We'd make up games, whatever, or riding bikes, that sort of stuff. So any kind of outdoor activity. I was active in Boy Scouts, so we did camping and that sort of stuff. So I was all over the place as a kid.
Mhm. Have you gone back to doing those same things? Like, are you swimming now? Do you go and do some of these things you were doing as a kid?
I haven't. I've done a little bit of swimming. I have a tougher time with that. I think just because of my competitive nature. I don't think I will ever get back to even close to what I used to do in the swimming pool. So to me, the fitness thing is enough for me. I'm a big Jeep guy, so I actually just got a new Jeep. So
I
I'll
saw
probably
that. Congratulations.
thank
Looks like
you.
a
I'll
nice ride.
probably start doing going to some shows, and I don't know how much off-roading I'll do with that. Just getting out and again, being social, meeting people. If I get a chance to share the story of being sober, great. If not, that's okay too. Um, you know, it's I've gotten to be a lot more comfortable than I ever thought I would be about it. And I actually owe that a lot to you, the greater Instagram community that has kind of been open armed with all of that. So I think that's helped out a lot to not have any kind of qualms about saying, hey, I don't drink, or to have that. I think that's something that I lacked for a long time, was the confidence that when somebody said, oh, you don't drink, or whatever the comment would be, that I would be able to say, yeah, I went pro and retired early, or whatever kind of quip I could come up with, or just, hey, no, it just doesn't do it for me. Whatever the case may be. I think having that sort of confidence with that is golden. It's something I don't know that I ever thought I would get to, and I'm very happy to have.
Yeah, it's so interesting being that you were, a high level athlete growing up and doing all these things, yet you still had this like level of insecurity when it came to saying,
For
"Hey, I'm
sure.
not drinking." I know I was the same way, and it's so crazy like how that is such a big deal, and yet
Yeah.
here I was like a great, awesome athlete, like I love that part of it, and yet I can't tell someone, "Hey, I'm done drinking."
Yeah,
It's
I guess just because I guess maybe because it makes you feel like you're less than, for lack of a better term. And you just couldn't do that. And now I finally have got to that space of it's okay. Like, it's okay to not drink. Like, in fact, it's more than okay. It's better than the alternative for sure. And I think for a lot of people, they don't understand, especially I can speak for myself, that if you saw me when I had a serious drinking problem, you would totally understand why I don't drink. But because people only see a certain side of you, they're like, "Oh, I can't imagine you would ever be whatever." Well, if you did, you would get it. So I think that's a big part of it too.
it is absolutely. And for those listening, I mean, you absolutely can be empowered to do what Bo and I have done, which is find the community. And social media, I'll say it time and time again, I was a hater for a while until I
Yeah.
actually tapped into the power of it when it came to self improvement, motivation, community for what I was trying to accomplish. And the sober community and Instagram completely blew me away. I was like, oh my gosh, I'm gaining all these friends. They're all cheering me on. I was like, if I had this, I would have been sober years ago, because now
Yeah.
I see that in my head, I thought that I was the only one that if I stop drinking, I'm not going to have any friends. Like this shut me down completely. And now I'm having these discussions on these podcasts and I can't get enough of it. It's like the highlight of my day, having
Yeah.
chats with you and other people, because you don't feel alone. And I
Yeah.
think everybody who's sober curious immediately goes, well, crap, the entire world does this. What am I going to do now? I'm going to be isolated. I want you all to know that's totally false. Totally false. But you have to be proactive and reach out to the communities. And Bo and I are here. We've got our pages.
Yeah.
In fact, I empower you, you can do the same thing we're doing. We're just telling our
Yeah.
stories online. Build your brand. I mean, we're in a
Yeah.
day and age now where you're stupid not to. I mean, because
Right.
everybody has a beautiful story or something they want to pursue or a passion. And for you to be able to get on camera even and explain your struggles with alcohol, because we all soak it up. We love hearing your story,
Oh yeah.
or saying, hey, I'm thinking of quitting. And
Yeah.
here's my, just talk about it, post things. It's the coolest, and it certainly has helped me, and I know it's helped you too, Bo, and having that community is just so massive. So yeah, make it happen, and just take one step, whether it's telling somebody else or starting a page or to keep you
Yeah.
accountable. Like it's amazing what kind of doors kind of fly open when you make those decisions.
Yeah. For sure. Yeah. And I hear all, I know I say it a lot on my page. Everybody has their own path. For some people, it's AA. For some others, it's another organization. For me, it was, somebody telling me I was going to be out on my butt if I didn't quit. And I've always, again, kind of back to the all or nothing mentality. So, I quit cold turkey and I didn't look back. I've never gone to meetings. I've never done anything like that. Does that make it right or wrong? You know, I think the result speaks for itself, but that's it. That path may not be for everybody. So the thing with alcohol, at least from in my experience, is that it's not something you can kind of wean yourself off. You know, if you're always keep putting it in your life, it will always be in your life. Like, so finding your cutoff date and getting help, whatever that, however that looks for the person, is the most important thing.
Totally agree. You mentioned wanted to discuss the statement knowledge is power, and you had a view on that, and I want to hear your thoughts on that.
Oh yeah, so I think I might have stolen this from Tony Robbins. So the knowledge is power is I always like to say knowledge is not power, it's only potential power. Only because I can say from my experience, I have an undergraduate and graduate degree in the exercise science field. I've done bodybuilding shows, I've swam, competitively at the college level. I've done all these things, yet I've been morbidly obese and I've also been an alcoholic. Those things shouldn't go together. So the knowledge didn't help me at all. So you have to execute, you have to use your knowledge and use it for good, not evil. But yeah, I think that's a big thing, is that it's only potential power. If you don't use your head and do the things that you know you should do. And to me, it's a lot of the training that I've done. I don't think I've ever had one client that didn't know what they needed to do. They know that they need to quit putting crap in their body, and that they need to move more, but they need somebody to kind of help push them in that direction. And you can get to more specifics of that, but in general, they know that they shouldn't be eating crap during the week and drinking on the weekends. It's just a matter of doing. So yeah, that's kind of my thing with that.
That's cool. That's cool. I was so curious how you're gonna go about
Oh
that,
yeah,
and I'm with you. It makes total sense. Yeah, we can know all the right things, but the beauty of this statement is you know yourself the best. Nobody knows you as well as you know you. So if you are telling yourself and Googling, do I have a drinking problem? I think I have a drinking problem. I need to probably quit. You have to listen. We can sit here and tell you all day long. You know what we're going to tell you. Yeah,
oh yeah,
quit right now. Like, just stop the podcast, go dump out all your booze, start letting people know this is the changed you. You're going to make this happen, and reach out to communities and make it happen. But you're the only one who has that knowledge. We don't. So listen to the knowledge. But if you know the information and you don't take action, like Bo just said, you're totally screwed. And that comes with any life advice or anything.
yeah.
And yeah, I'm so glad that you wrote that, because I was so curious what you meant.
Yeah, I think, and to kind of add on that, I say it all the time. I feel like I say it more on Facebook than I do anywhere else. But the statement, if you think you have a problem, you probably do. And I think more people need to kind of listen to that inner voice, like you're talking about. They know themselves that if you're constantly checking those quizzes out, or you're constantly questioning your decisions, or if you have times where you're like, do I really want to go out, or do I really drink? Listen to yourself, and look at, you know, and maybe you aren't, and that's, I think, part of the problem is a lot of people maybe they don't have significant consequences from drinking. Maybe they Uber all the time. Maybe they hydrate. Maybe they do all the things. That doesn't necessarily mean it's not a problem.
Exactly. There's so many telltale signs that are pointing you in that right direction. But you gotta listen to yourself, and you gotta pay attention to how you're operating, and understand that denial is such a big part of this.
Oh,
Such
for
a
sure.
massive part. I can remember so many statements that came out of my mouth that were complete in full denial mode. So it's something to consider when you're thinking about this topic. But
For sure.
I want to wrap this all up, man. I could talk to you for hours, Bo. This has been so cool. Just real quick, what is your favorite non-alcoholic beverage that you go to?
Ooh. That's a good question. I guess I would say I'm your typical redneck as far as beer goes. I really do enjoy the Bush NA. It's just a typical American light beer. It's good with everything. There's actually a local beer called SEBO it's actually brewed here in Charleston, South Carolina. that's really good. It's got kind of a, oddly enough, kind of a saltwater finish. It's really good with seafood. It's good just as a daily crushable drink. And that's what's crazy with the whole NA space now is there's so many different beers, and don't even get into the other aperitifs and the bourbon, the NA bourbons and NA other types of alcohol, alcohol like drinks. It's really it's a great time to be in it. It's not like back in the day when I can remember when O'Doul's was the absolutely only option, and it was horrible.
That's so bad. So bad.
Now I've actually had it, and I don't know if it's gotten better or maybe my taste buds have changed over the years. It's really not that bad. But yeah, it's great to be able to go to different places, and Charleston's getting a little bit better about, having, and some bars are better than others, but it's great just to have the option, even if it's something that I may necessarily not care for or drink, but at least they have something for people who want to go down that avenue, and they're charging the same price, so they're making money off of it. So why not?
Hmm. There's so many great options now. I've been
But yeah,
thoroughly impressed. And even coming from someone who really loved to drink IPAs in every form. I mean, some of the stuff that's come out now, I drank it and went, what, like,
but yeah,
wow, wow, wow. This is very, very similar. I personally don't, I hardly ever drink NA in anything lately. I used, when I was going through it at the beginning, I kind of tried
yeah,
a handful of things, but I don't have the hankering for that anymore. I drink tons
yeah,
of, bubbly waters, LaCroix, like club soda with lime is my total go-to if I'm
but
out and
yeah,
about. And if I get real crazy, it's an Arnold Palmer.
oh yeah. There you go. Yeah, I feel like I go through waves. I go through, times where I'm into the reviewing and I'm trying everything I can get my hands on, and then I'll go through times where I'm like pretty much diet Mountain Dew and water is pretty much all I'm drinking. So it just depends. But yeah.
Yeah, that's awesome. Well, cool, Bo. I appreciate your time. If there's any listeners who want to get a hold of you or follow your pages, how do they go about doing that?
So just the main two. I've got the Bono Zero and Bono's Fitness. You can follow me on there and certainly reach out if you have any questions, concerns. I'll do the best I can, or certainly point you in the direction that you need to be pointed if I don't have the answers for sure.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Bo. I appreciate your time. And just a reminder, if you're not following me on Instagram, it's Join Sober Identity. I've also got a YouTube channel where these podcasts are sitting. And I've also got the website, same thing, joinsoberidentity.com. Shoot me an email, hit me up on Instagram. I love chatting to people who are curious about this and also people going through it. And I know Bo does as well. So please, please, please reach out to us. The community is huge. You can do it, and there's beautiful things on the other end. So thank you so much, Bo, and appreciate your time, buddy.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
All right, we'll see you.